is there some sort of a, a history that we can bank on or whatever? I'll start with you, Mario.
Yes. First of all, thank you for the invitation to be part of the panel today. Yes, it's not pure guesswork, Sito. In fact, it is scientifically supported by data. And let me go straight to the figure that you mentioned, 200 years.
Yeah.
How did scientists come about this figure? In one aspect of earthquake studies is what we call paleoseismology.
Okay.
Paleo means ancient, seismology means study of earthquakes.
Yeah.
So we study ancient earthquakes. How do we study them? We go back to our records. We call as far back in time as we can, and then we plot them, we put them in maps, and then we go to the field to verify them. And in particular, the Metro Manila area, for the Metro Manila area, we speak about the West Valley Fault.
Okay.
Along the West Valley Fault, there's record dating back to about the 1500s, both historical as well as instrumental.
Okay.
The instrumental records are much more recent. They date back to 1970s only. But we have historical, for example, accounts of friars, Spanish priests before. And then what some scientists have done, in particular those who are doing studies in earthquakes, is that we tried to locate areas where potentially there were earthquakes before, based from the data. We have maps. And in one area in Montalban or Rodriguez Rizal, there was a study in 2000 which involved the digging of a trench. And the idea of digging of a trench is that we look into the records of the earth.
Yeah.
If there have been fractures or cracks in the ground that indicate earthquakes in the past. And indeed, in that study, they found at least 3 or 4 cracks related to earthquake events in the past.
Okay.
And so, according to that study, led by a USGS geologist named Nelson and co-authored by colleagues from FIVOLCS, the major conclusion of that paper is that in the last 1,500 years, about 5 earthquakes or 4 earthquakes in the last 5,000 years have hit Metro Manila or caused that fault to move during that time span. And if you do the quick average of the interval of these 4 or 5 events during that period, you get the 200-year interval.
Okay.
Actually, it's 375 years.
375 years.
Yes, there's a margin of error, like any other scientific method, of 200 years.
Okay.
So if you go to the more conservative figure, you do 375 minus 200 years. Actually, that's 175 years.
Okay.
So the next question is, when was the last time?
Yeah.
Because we are counting 175 years from the last time. And FIVOLCS records indicate that it happened about in the 1800s, the middle 1800s.
Okay.
So you do the math, it's ripe. It should have happened yesterday. Okay. So, but if you go to the less conservative, the more optimistic figure, which is 375 plus 200, that's 575 years from 1800s. So that will be in another 150 years from now.
If we're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Okay.
But the problem is we are living within the margin of error.
Yeah.
That's why preparedness really is the key.
What's the worst case scenario as far as you're concerned, Mario?
In terms of the strength of the earthquake?
Yeah.
Yes, the model magnitude for the West Valley Fault is 7.5.
Okay.
And again, there's scientific basis for that. It's the length of the fault from Rodriguez Rizal to down to Tagaytay, by the way.
Yeah.
That's about 120 kilometers.
That's why I live in Lipa.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have
It's
other
50 kilometers further up.
but you have other faults.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, that's the worst case scenario. And but usually in literature it's 7.2.
Okay.
But remember, Bohol was 7.2.
Correct.
And you see, you've seen what happened to Bohol.
And
Almost all the heritage churches, about 20 of them collapsed.
But they were all old, and they were
But
all
there are old churches in Manila.
yeah, okay. No, so but it's all about retrofitting.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
So
precisely.
worst case scenario is a 7.2 what will Metro Manila look like in a 7.2?
Yeah, in the MMIR study, the one mentioned by Mark, about 20% of the new buildings will have moderate to slight damage, meaning the high-rise 30 stories and higher, because they were built they were supposed to be built according to the new building code.
Yeah.
The problem is the older, meaning the pre-1970s
Turn of the
and
century.
turn of the century buildings, which were not designed according to the new building code. And about 80% of those will perish, as in total collapse. And the projected death at the time was about 33,000 people
at
in
the
Metro
onset.
Manila. But at that time, in 2004, the population of Manila was only 10 million. Now I think it's 15 million. So if you do the prorated
So we're talking
number,
maybe 50,000.
Yes.